For 9 years, Russia has been attempting to conquer Ukraine, which voted 92.3% for independence in 1991, with the all-out invasion in February being the latest escalation. This video looks at why Russians' view of their traditions is to blame. Russia is a country with a long history of oppression and domination of surrounding peoples. This may originate in the fact that the Mongol Golden Horde oppressed it for 2.5 centuries, exacting tribute. This historical trauma led to a desire to conquer surrounding kingdoms so subjugation would never happen again. Under Ivan the Great, the Russian kingdom would grow 3 times as large through conquest of areas surrounding Moscow. His grandson, Ivan the Terrible, expanded into Siberia. The Romanov dynasty steadily expanded the Russian Empire for 3 centuries, reaching the Pacific, taking the Baltic states, much of Poland, Finland, the Caucasus, Turkestan, and Ukraine. The Romanovs undertook modernization, but maintained an increasingly unpopular autocracy. The challenge of growing nationalism in the 19th century was met by 2 approaches. The Austro-Hungarian approach was to grant autonomy to diffuse demands for independence. The Russian approach was forced assimilation. The Finnish, Belarusians, and Ukrainians had their right to be a separate people relentlessly attacked. Forced assimilation is brutal and unjust, and in the long run, often counterproductive because its injustice means a subject people revolt at the first opportunity. Yet it has been a Russian tradition for centuries. In 1917, the Russian Empire was rocked by the Bolshevik Revolution, which denounced imperialism as a feature of capitalist exploitation. For a brief time under Lenin, it seemed oppressed peoples would have the right to self-determination, but the pull of the tradition of Russian imperialism was too strong for the Communist Party to resist. In the USSR, Moscow controlled everything. Ukrainians, Armenians, Belarusians, Kazakhs, Georgians, Latvians, Uzbeks, Azerbaijanis, Lithuanians, Turkmen, Estonians, Tajiks, Latvians, Kyrgyz, and Moldavians all had very little autonomy. The USSR also hypocritically denounced Western colonialism while it practiced its own colonialism in the form of the Warsaw Pact and later Afghanistan. Only with the dissolution of the Soviet Empire under Gorbachev could these countries reclaim their independence. However, Russian ultranationalism was kindled in the new Russian Federation. Its people and elites looked backwards to regain past imperial glory rather than making a modern democratic Russian state. This was seen by the authoritarian president of Russia elected in 2000, Vladimir Putin. His policy was to use force to first crush all opposition within Russia, notably oligarchs like Khodorkovsky, and then to take over territory outside of Russia, either informally like Abkhazia or formally like Crimea. In 2021, he wrote a 5,000-word polemic titled "On the Historical Unity of Russians and Ukrainians," repeating the falsehood that they are one people and Ukraine is a fake state led astray by Western plots. This chilling denial of a people's right to exist came alongside his admiration of fascist thinkers like Ivan Ilyin. Putin, and sadly most Russians, denies the Ukrainian people's existence, which comes from their gullible view that Ukrainians have always been happy little Russians. A knowledge of the ghastly Holodomor, the 1930s starvation of Ukraine by Russia, gives the lie to this. Putin's aggressive imperialism is despicable and causes suffering and death. He nurses a childish wish for Russia to once again be a big bully. Additionally, he sees himself as a modern-day Tsar, imbued with a duty to restore Russia as a great power. But there is no such duty. It is invented by his mind. And Russia has no right to invade peaceful nations because of some imagined destiny to rule Eurasia. Thankfully, there is a solution. Russians high and low must recognize they must choose the path of peace and understand that imperialism has no place in the 21st century. They must recognize that Russia's traditional obsession with its imperial past, whether Tsarist or Soviet, is causing itself immense damage. More than anything, they should recognize that the idea that Russia must be an imperial great power is just that, an idea. And ideas can change.